Hello and welcome back to another day in the arena. It's me, it's CGB, and today in the arena we're trying out a Dimir Reanimator Agent of Treachery deck. Really, it's all about the agent. Agent of Treachery is a 2/3 for 7, not the great rate we're looking for, but when Agent of Treachery enters the battlefield, gain control of target permanent. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. So the glory of Agent of Treachery is you discard it to a card like Chart a Course, then you return it to the battlefield with a card like Blood for Bones on turn 4 and steal their best thing. Don't be afraid to steal land. As we'll get into, this isn't the worst play pattern. Say on turn 4 you use Blood for Bones, bring back Agent of Treachery, steal an opponent's land. The next turn untap and play your own land. This brings you to 6 mana. What can you do with 6 mana? How about if you quasi-duplicate your Agent of Treachery twice? What happens there? Create a token that's a copy of target creature you control, and then jumpstart, do it again. If you create 2 more Agents of Treachery, you steal 2 more permanents from your opponent, maybe 2 more lands, maybe 2 more creatures, and at the beginning of your end step, if you control 3 or more permanents you don't own, draw 3 cards. So if this combo goes through, usually you took your 3 best cards from the opponent, or maybe 3 of their lands, so they can't do much, and then you draw 9 cards. This sounds like fantasy booking. This sounds like Magical Christmas Land. It actually does happen. Hopefully I'll be able to do it for you in the video. I've made plenty of people very, very sad, and usually they don't realize that you're about to draw 9 cards when you make this play, but as soon as they figure that out, the scoops come. They don't usually wait for you to go through your gigantic hand and choose what to discard and what to keep for next turn. Decking yourself is not out of the question if you choose your targets poorly and don't gain control of things that matter. Also, we have a number of other cards to play into the strategy. So Blood for Bones, if you don't have an agent, can still be a value engine if you have creatures with comes into play abilities, like Ravenous Chupacabra, Cloudkin Seer, Tomebound Lich, which lets us put the agents into our graveyard as well, Dusk Legion Zealot, and Viltib the Lost. So draw some cards, get some stuff on the board, kill some of your opponent's stuff, possibly wipe their field with Massacre Girl if you need to. Use Tyrant Scorn and Unsummon to either stay alive or bounce your own things for value, and then eventually start using Agent of Treachery to take all of their things and take over the game. Set it up with the quasi-duplicate combo. That's what we're trying to do, and we're going to go do it right after these messages. HauntedFlower.com has thousands of licensed apparel designs. Licensed means it is legal for me to use the trademarked logos and such, and I paid a lot of money to make them, so please check it out. Game of Thrones t-shirts help you remember better times when characters you liked were still alive. Magic the Gathering Mana Symbol pants. Magic the Gathering Mana Symbol Sleep Pants. I don't always wear pants when I stream, but when I do, I wear these. All this and more shipped worldwide at HauntedFlower.com. Use the promo code CGB to save 10% and support the channel at the same time. Sure, we're on the play with some draw or removals. We'll give it a shot. Let's see what happens here. We can probably hit our lands thanks to Filthib and the Zealot. We can probably remove the first key thing we need to kill. Another red deck, okay. Come on out, Phil. If the opponent targets Phil with a spell, it goes right back into the deck, so if you'd like to shock this, maybe I'll draw it in the future. Alright. Fibblethib, I know. Don't tell me how to pronounce these things. I usually know, and I usually give them nicknames. I don't care about your correct pronunciations or spellings. Steams, alright. Well, for certain you're not gonna block, are ya? Let's let the opponent at least add 1 counter to this before taking it out with the Tyrant Scorn. We do have the Agent of Treachery in our hand and a Chart of Course to discard it. Well, that's obnoxious, isn't it? How about we destroy this? Congratulations, you drew 2 of them. Now let's use the chart before we attack because we actually want to discard the Agent of Treachery. Now the sad thing here is I can play out the other Zealot, but if something happens to both creatures I can't reanimate the Agent. However, I think we have to try. I think that a Goblin Chain Whirler would be a wrecking ball, but the opponent missed their last land drop. Make them peel it perfect. Do they do it? Don't Mountain Chain Whirl me. Don't do it. Don't do it. Okay, risk factor. So, taking 4 here seems bad, of course. What am I doing next turn? Stealing the Runaway Steamkin? Yeah, that's the plan. I think I'll take the damage. Steamies. And do I want to block? I guess having this in the graveyard is very acceptable because we can get it back with the Blood for Bones. There's a quasi-duplicate, wonderful. Let's attack first. Every little bit of value. Away goes Philthub. Although I think getting Philthub back is way better than the Zealot. Anyway, Agent, Fibbles, give me your Steamies. Let's play the blue source, because we want all the blue sources we can get, and hopefully the Agent is alive next turn for the quasi-duplicate. Chandra's Spitfire is here, and the opponent says go, and that's going to... This is about to end. Very, very badly. Give me your land. Copy you. Discard this swamp, I suppose. Give me your land. We could just take the Spitfire, which is probably safer. Alright. And now draw 9. Oi! And like I said, most opponents, when they realize that we're about to draw 9 cards, no longer wish to play Magic. The jealousy is too much. I suppose we'll keep it. It's a little slow, but we're on the play. And we don't have a removal spell, which is scary. We're up against Infect, which is a deck in Modern about killing people on turn 2 or 3. Therefore, prepare for nonsense. It's actually more of a disruptive deck, so I guess it makes sense that they might play some mono blue. So do I draw the cards and discard here, or do I get something onto the battlefield? Probably better to resolve the chart, of course, even though at this point what to discard is a big question mark. No. Let's have battlefield presence. But mono blue is going to be really rough. Just because they won't let us resolve our spells that let us do the big things like Blood for Bones. Okay, anything else? No. So, let's start with seeing if attacking will work. If the opponent wants to use a Merfolk Trickster on my Fibblethib, that's fine with me. It's just a 1/1. What I really would love to do is resolve some of my other spells. So should those other spells be the Lich or the Seer? Both have an ATB. I like the Seer early here. Just make sure that the opponent has the right counter spell. And it doesn't look like they do. So that's nice. That can at least do some blocking of other flyers. It makes it look like the opponent's on a combination of like Dive Down, Spell Pierce, those types of effects, which makes us want to play our creatures out. Okay. Definitely seems like they're either setting up a Chart, of course, or they have a Dive Down. Let's just wait with that. The opponent trading for a Dive Down on their turn when we could be attacking them back for 2? Yeah. Let's not fall into the trap. Especially when we might be able to force the issue better with our own Tyrant Scorn or Chupacabra available. First I'm going to shock, I think. The odds are that we're playing the Tyrant Scorn. The opponent might be able to counter it, but having a mana up. Of course, the Siren Stormtamer can also do that. We could always just go for a Chupacabra first. And if the opponent plays a Dive Down in response, then we get to keep everything. We don't expose anything to the risk. It's a very awkward thing. But then, of course, we get no damage through. I think it would be better if I shocked and at least offered the Fibblethib. This is the creature I least want to trade with the Dive Down. This one can't even block. If the opponent wants to use a Dive Down, a Trickster, or anything against the Fibblethib, I don't mind. Okay. Well, they didn't have a counter when I went for the Chupa before. The mana up for the Storm Tamer can definitely counter the activation, but then they're down a body and I'm up a body. So let's see what they've got. Okay, Chupa takes down your Terramander. Now what? Okay. A Merfolk Trickster that wasn't very effective is what that is. It's kind of strange. The attacks continue, but we don't have to block. We'll be in okay position in the race of 5 versus 3. Okay, now the opponent goes for Tempest Shin. Do they still have a dive down? They have a Storm Tamer. That's the big advantage. I guess I could play around the Spell Pierce. We could lead off with a Tyrant Scorn. The opponent would sacrifice a Storm Tamer to protect. And then maybe the Chupacabra next turn. Plus we could play a Lich this turn as well. Let's go here. We don't want to do it on our... Well, if we do it on our opponent's turn, we use up mana on their turn, don't we? Is that so bad? But they could counter it in a number of different ways. This makes them sack their Storm Tamer now. Okay. What cards aren't very good? No, this Watery Grave's not the greatest. It does let us double spell next turn if we're willing to discard a Chart, of course, but I don't think that's worth it. Say go. The Death Touch Lifelink, we'll see if it can help us in this race a little somehow. No blocks there for the Tempest Jin. Now, we're going to find out here if the opponent saved a counter. That's a really good peel of an unsummon. Let's hold something back. A Trickster from the opponent, of course, can be a very bad thing. Let's throw you guys at the problem. Another land that we can discard, okay. So whether or not to play a Chupa here and hope the opponent's without a counter, it's pretty tough. But yeah, let's give it a shot. Okay. Nom. Sometimes they don't have it. And now we have the unsummon available to bring back a Chupa and use again if we want. The opponent does have another Tempest Jin. They had another island as well. Both of those could have been in the hand. There was no stick, but that doesn't mean the opponent doesn't have a Spell Pierce. There's a Quasi-Duplicate. That's pretty good. Let's try that first. Does play around Spell Pierce from this position. Negate. Okay, that is one of the cards our opponent held on to. We'll be able to try that again, though, next turn. Send the Lich, because it has Death Touch, and of course a little bit of lifelink can't hurt. Another Lich. Don't think we need more of those right this minute. I don't think saving the unsummon makes sense yet. We could go for it on our Chupa now, so that it was coming next turn, but I like going for the Chart, of course. And is it a Spell Pierce? Does the opponent want to get a Spell Pierce out of their hand right now when there's a Quasi-Duplicate waiting? I guess they decide to. So I just don't want to give up this much life when I'm probably about to deal with the Jin. It puts us in danger to even small ball things. And the opponent's going to play the Chart, of course. Oof. It's a battle of charts. One of them's a land, though. There's an Agent of Treachery. Let's discard that, at least. Target the Chupa. Chupa is here. Alright, let's send our friends. Not you. You're here to take one for the team. Another land that I can safely dump into the yard. Another Chart a Course. Give me 2 fresh looks. An unsummon that's open. Things are really lining up. Opponent is way down in material. They're way up in land. They outlanded us. Feels okay, man. It is mono blue. Mono blue is a tough deck. You need some breaks sometimes. Their god draws are really hard to beat. Alright, blocking the token. They don't want a creature in my graveyard. That's smart. And now we could play an Agent of Treachery, or we could discard it. I think I'll just drop off the land and use Chart a Course to draw more land, most likely. Okay. Dusk Legion Zealot. There's the bonus land. Say go. 2 agents ready to steal whatever the opponent might do. But we were able to nickel and dime them to pieces with Chupacabras. Pretty good opener on the play. The Quasi-Duplicate can't really pull off anything with the Lost. He just goes back into the deck when you try to Quasi-Duplicate. So that's a problem. But hopefully Tyrant Scorn and the card draw ability will get us some things that are helpful. One card I took out of the deck eventually was Thought Erasure because it didn't put a body on the field or do anything with a body on the field. This deck is very much about getting the right cards onto the battlefield and making use of them. You need a body on the field to go with the Blood for Bones. Alright, but before the Lost comes out here, let's blow up that Llanowar Elf before very bad things start to happen. Alright. Let's play the Dusk Legion Zealot since we can quasi-duplicate it if we decide that's what we need to do. And there is a Seer. Okay. Moving the deck forward. We're definitely going to need some Agents of Treachery against a Bant deck of this style. So another reason for all these cantrip creatures is they're decent against Teferi. This Teferi Time Raveler boy is really annoying if you're playing the wrong cards. Let's try out the Cloud Conceer, and it looks like we're going to miss a land drop. But we can drop the Agent of Treachery in the graveyard with the Chart, of course, if our opponent doesn't play a Narset. These creatures can continue to pressure Teferi a little bit, not let him do too much nonsense.
Oh, I've done the hero.
What's the play? Our opponent with Frilled Mystic Perfect mana. A green blue, a green blue, a blue white, a blue white, and a Shalai. I didn't draw a Chupacabra, so I don't have an easy answer to the Shalai. I'm likely to pull another black. Let's try like this and try to draw into another land and then bounce the Shalai, because right now we're not accomplishing enough if we only bounce Shalai and don't draw any cards this turn. We're just not moving our deck forward. Did we draw a black source? We did. Agent of Treachery to the graveyard. We'll still need a Blood for Bones. Now return target creature to owner's hand. That's you. Put a little bit of pressure on the Time Raveler.
No more games.
And say your turn. We're still going to need to find Blood for Bones. Those agents are absolutely necessary. Stealing the opponent's lands, creatures, their Shalais. With a good draw that includes Blood for Bones, you can really just tear apart a deck like this. With a slow draw, though, you can die a very painful time. Also, if our opponent just has a Nissa here, we're so far behind, I don't think anything really good will come of it. They're thinking a lot, though. Implies they might not have the perfect draw themselves. And Shalai is back. Is there a land drop? No. Wow. I had to think about that a lot. Alright. So we've got the Chart, of course. We've got the Unsummon. Do we use an Unsummon here or a Tyrant Scorn? I'm going to go ahead and use an unsummon, saving the Scorn for possibly removing a future elf or something of that nature. Then I'm going to play a Chart of Course drawing 2, trying to get as deep in the deck as possible. If we hit another land, I'll play another creature. I don't have anything to discard right now. You could say the Quasi-Duplicate, but it's fine in my hand. And do we hit the land? We do, and the Blood for Bones. It's on. Let's go ahead and play the Lost. We'd rather get the Lost out of the graveyard than a Zealot because of the life payment. And if the opponent misses their land drop again, we're going to steal those lands. Lock it in. Darn it. Now, if they have a Nissa who shakes the world, we may have to steal that, although we could steal the creature that Nissa creates. Biogenic Ooze? Okay. Interesting. What's the play? Stealing the Ooze is interesting, it grows itself, but I think stealing the land is where it's at. Just shutting down what the opponent can do. Now the next turn they can play the Shalai to protect the Ooze. These go up to 4/4s. I have some chumps. As long as I can quasi-duplicate the Treachery, we should be able to wrap this thing up. So let's do it like this. Let's attack with the Seer and sacrifice the Seer, so we keep our 2 chump blockers around. Go get Agent. Go get Seer into the hand. Steal your Breeding Pool. Gain a life here. Pass it on over. The other good thing about lands is if the opponent plays a card like Flood of Tears or Agent or Teferi, Time Raveler, then bouncing the Agent doesn't get them their card back. They need a way to return land permanents to their hand, which are pretty uncommon right now in Standard. So stealing lands makes it very hard for the opponent to get it back, whereas if we stole the Ooze and the opponent played a Teferi Time Raveler, they just get their Ooze back. And we want those 3 permanents of theirs on the battlefield so that we can draw a million cards. Alright, Ooze. And another land. Great. Time to take over. Are you ready, everybody? Let's just grab your land. Let's grab all your green land so that nothing bad can ever happen to me. Discard a card. I can play a Zealot this turn if I wish. These Tyrant Scorns are going to be really good for bouncing these. So I guess that's better than playing a Zealot. I guess it's better than the Seer. We can just drop off the Seer. It's fine. We're going to draw a million cards anyway. We're probably overthinking it again. And yeah, let's just use a Tyrant Scorn to bounce the Shalai. Or bounce the Ooze. I think that's even better. Well, no, it has to be the Shalai. Because everything else has hexproof. Silly ideas I have sometimes. Don't mind me. Let's draw some cards. The other great thing about stealing lands, they help you play all these cards that we draw. Alright, 1, 2, 3, 4. We didn't find another quasi-duplicate, but we can bounce our Agent of Treachery and replay it with the Tyrant Scorn. We can also sacrifice it to Blood for Bones. There's the Teferi, which we sort of talked about. I mean, what are you going to do? Bounces a Dusk Legion Zealot. Cool. If the opponent attacks, we definitely won't mind seeing the Agent of Treachery in the graveyard. In fact, all of these can go to the graveyard if we wish. It's not a big deal. We do need something to sacrifice afterwards, but it doesn't really matter if it's one of the tokens or not. Okay. So we can sacrifice one of these. They draw cards, which is nice, but you actually don't want to deck. So here we go. Sack this. Get the Agent of Treachery. Let's put the Fib in our hand. Give me your land. Just nothing but over landlording our opponent. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So we can't bounce and replay this turn. Let's see if we can draw into some stuff anyway. Another Blood for Bones or Quasi-Duplicate. Oh, are you kidding right now? That's really broken. Attack you. Return you. Return you to the hand. And the opponent, rightfully so I would say, no longer wishes to see all of their lands turn treacherous. It's the most corrupt real estate developer in all of Dominaria, in all of the multiverse, the Agent of Treachery. That's all the time I have today. Shorter videos while I'm stockpiling them so that you have content while I'm on my trip. I enjoy Dimir Reanimator. It's very fun. The games you saw today were surprisingly good. This deck is certainly capable of getting steamrolled, usually a draw that involves being on the draw without a turn 2 removal spell, and instead like a turn 2 value creature. If the opponent has 2 or 3 creatures on the battlefield or plays an early Nissa, this deck doesn't really recover from that. The only way back is when you can reanimate an Agent of Treachery, having killed something to buy you the time. So keep that in mind. I don't think it's tier 1. I think it's a little below tier 2, a little combo-centric, but there's a lot of potential in Agent of Treachery, and maybe somebody can tune the proper shell to find and give this deck what it needs to be a real contender. Also keep an eye on this strategy when rotation comes, because Blood for Bones and Agent of Treachery are new cards that are going to be with us for a long time, and if we end up in a format where stealing an early land or a key creature from the opponent is a backbreaking play, then this could be a serious deck. Thank you for watching this video. As always, I will see you in the next video. Goodbye.